Well, you may have seen from this title, what has freedom of information, the Isle of Man and Syrian refugees got to do with us here on MT-TV? Well, it's been brought up by a political commentator who is from Guernsey. That's Anthony Webber, who's joining us now. And it's all about trying to find out information from not only here, but Jersey, Guernsey and the United Kingdom government. And it was far bigger than just that subject, really, and we'll find out now as we talk to Anthony. But it seems that the reason you've been telling us about what's going on is you've hit roadblocks. Getting information out from all different places hasn't just been as easy as it should be.
Yes, Paul, it is, as you say, a pretty long and perhaps complicated story. But going back to 2014, when David Cameron announced the UK were going to take some Syrian refugees, obviously people across the UK and in the Crown Dependencies were very sympathetic. So a number of local authorities got in touch with the Home Office and asked if they could be involved with the scheme. And so did the three Crown Dependency governments. The only thing is that none of the local authorities and none of the Crown Dependencies actually told their citizens what was actually going on. So the decisions which have been made to take Syrian refugees by local authorities have been made without really much consultation with their local systems on who's coming, the cost and resource implications, and so on. Anyway, the situation, as you probably remember, in the Isle of Man, there was a little bit of concern expressed about what would be happening with this policy, and the same in Jersey and the same in Guernsey, although I would say the concern raised was much higher in the Channel Islands than it was in the Isle of Man. But it was a lot to do with resources and who was going to be coming and had everything been thought through properly. I, at that time, put in some freedom of information requests with some colleagues. It was possible to make them in Guernsey and Jersey, but at that time, the Isle of Man freedom of information laws were not really in operation, so there couldn't be one for the Isle of Man then. But essentially, it proved really difficult with the UK Home Office to get information. And cutting a long story short, there is an option with these freedom of information requests to go to the Information Commissioner, and they, not completely, but did side with the Home Office on not disclosing the information. And I took up the right to go to a tribunal panel, which has actually sat on the 12th of July, but it's still doing its deliberations because it's looking at legal technicalities. My own view is that to an extent it doesn't really matter what the result is. I mean, obviously I would prefer there was disclosure of this communication which took place between the three Crown Dependencies and the UK Home Office, because that is what is not being disclosed. And there are all sorts of weird and wonderful reasons given as to why this information shouldn't be disclosed, which I sort of disagree with. But in a sense, essentially, why I say it doesn't matter too much what the result is because it actually shows the problem we've got at the moment with freedom of information laws, both in the Crown Dependencies and in the UK, in that there are exemptions where you can use those exemptions to not disclose information, which is very important.
So is this more about testing the system as far as you're concerned? Because, I mean, I think all three islands came out in the end saying they weren't going to take any Syrian refugees, but they would give more money into the pot to help them elsewhere. Would that be correct?
Yes, that's correct. And to be fair to the Isle of Man and Guernsey, since the decision not to take refugees has been made, I've had quite a lot of information, not the absolute definitive information I wanted, but certainly much more than was available to start with. Jersey had a very unusual situation because they denied any correspondence existed at all. And I think that is going to cause big problems in Jersey because clearly somebody's not telling the truth, because the UK Home Office admits readily that this correspondence does exist.
So you like testing freedom of information, do you, basically, be it in the Crown Dependencies or in the United Kingdom government?
Yes, I actually have been involved with a number of freedom of information requests in a number of areas, not just this one. And I passionately believe in the public's right to have information, because I think that with information, you can make sure you have good policies. And one of the problems with this particular policy is that it's more and more becoming recognised that it was a very poor policy. It hadn't been thought through properly, and it could have become better, but because of the government refusing to disclose information, to allow open and frank discussion of the policy, it didn't become a better policy. And this is the danger, where you put forward a national interest over and above the general public interest for disclosure of information. And it's something which really does need debate and discussion. I personally believe that not disclosing information should only be done in the most absolute exceptional of cases, and not in the cases that we've actually had here. Yes.
Yeah. Well, you've gone to tribunal in the UK, and you represented yourself. I mean, these things can cost money, can't they, if you want to use the legal beagles to help you?
Yes. There was a sort of bizarre situation where the Information Commissioner, who was actually the case was against, decided to not attend, and the Home Office decided they wanted to attend, and sent a very high-flying barrister who was completely up on the freedom of information laws. And to be fair, the panel chairman did actually say they recognised that there was a problem with these freedom of information issues, in that if people were having to represent themselves, they would lose out because of lacking the legal knowledge and technical side, which you need with these things, because you can actually win or lose these cases simply on legal technicalities. So it's something which they're aware of, but in essence, it may be that these laws need to be tidied up a bit, so government departments can't use these technicalities to get out of disclosing information.
Okay. Well, let's finish this by, I mean, you've done it in all the Crown Dependencies, you've done it in the UK. How does the Isle of Man fare when you've been trying to get information out? Because, I mean, we have a page, there's a website that puts most of them up there, although some people seem to be missed off it at the minute. But, how do we rate the Isle of Man in your efforts to find out things?
Well, I met the new Chief Minister at one of the party political conferences I was covering, and was very impressed, and felt that after getting in touch with him after that, there was quite a free flow of information. But what seems to be the problem at the moment is their reluctance to sort of take sides in this issue with the Home Office. I actually think they're wrong, because the public would have far more respect for any government if they went out of their way to disclose information rather than tried to hide it. And at the moment, there is this impression with the Isle of Man, Guernsey and Jersey, and of course the UK, where they're trying to hide information. But the answer to the question, I think the Isle of Man is getting a lot better with freedom of information disclosure, but perhaps after this particular instance, they will review things and become a lot better.